Hello and welcome back to the Shed Geek Podcast. Here's a message from our studio sponsor. Let's be real. Running a shed business today isn't just about building great sheds. The industry is changing fast. We're all feeling the squeeze, competing for fewer buyers while expectations keep climbing. And yet, I hear from many of you that you are still juggling spreadsheets, clunky software, or disconnected systems. You're spending more time managing chaos than actually growing your business. That's why I want to talk to you about our studio sponsor, ShedPro. If you're not already using them, I really think you should check them out. ShedPro combines your 3D configurator, point of sale, RTO contracts, inventory, deliveries, and dealer tools all in one platform. They even integrate cleanly into our Shed Geek marketing solutions. From website lead to final delivery, you can quote, contract, collect payment, and schedule delivery in one clean workflow. No more double entries, no more back and forth chaos. Quoting is faster, orders are cleaner. And instead of chasing down paperwork, you're actually running your business. And if you mention Shed Geek, you'll get 25% off all setup fees. Check it out at shedpro.co/ShedGeek. Thank you, ShedPro, for being our studio sponsor, and honestly, for building something that helps the industry. Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, here from a cool and crisp Metropolis, Illinois, 75-degree, basically temperature drop, I feel like, in the last 24 hours, or at least so it would appear, 75 down to 25 and feels like 5. So to me, that feels awful. And for anybody who's been around me and knows how code-natured I am living vicariously in Florida through all of you Southern dealers today, because it is chilly here in Metropolis. Today, I'm joined by none other than co-host Cord Cook of Growth Ops Ally. Really looking forward to doing this end of the year segment, beginning of the year segment, a little bit of both. We'll just get into it. For anybody who needs to reach out to the Shed Geek Podcast, telephone number 618-309-3648. Email me, guys. Email me. I love to get emails. info@shedgeek.com, info@shedgeek.com. Check out our page, our website at www.shedgeek.com. I guess we don't even need to say the W's anymore, Cord. That's just, it's so funny how everything's just turned into, we don't even say World Wide Web anymore. I don't think any of the ones below 20 know what that means. The Facebook page, go check out our Facebook page. We always appreciate you guys commenting, following along there, checking out our sponsor shout outs, our content, and as well as our Shed Sales Professionals page on social media private group. Please join that if you're looking to expand your knowledge. There's a lot of good commentary on there. Our call-in line for the Plain community, 330-997-3055. If you're in the Plain community and you're listening, you already know that number, but maybe your friends don't, or maybe someone who has someone that they work with in the Plain community who wants to listen, 330-997-3055. And a shout out to ourselves today, because how can you get more of a lower ego than actually saying, hey, look at us. And that just comes because me and Cord, are very humble people. We're so humble, we need to tell you about it. And Shed Geek Marketing is kind of what we're promoting a little bit today on our intro here. I want to tell you about the conversation today. Going to talk about the state of the industry, where we're at, where we're headed. Shed sales, just overall product offerings, industry dynamics, and then some of the Shed Geek efforts, the trends that we're seeing, the industry, what's where people are finding success, what is changing, what's the overall climate look like. And we really want to talk about our Shed Geek Media Kit, which is an exciting thing that we finally put together here for advertisers in 2026. So excited about Shed Geek Consultation, Shed Geek Marketing's relaunch, and even potentially opening up our own small shed lot for the first time in near 5 years right here in our hometown of the Man of Steel, Superman, Metropolis, Illinois. Cord, Welcome to the show. I'm feeling it today, man. It's a good day. I know it's cold, but it's sunny. God's good, and a new year's upon us, brother. How are you?
I'm good. You're exactly right. It's chilly, but I'm feeling the same. Maybe that little cold snap has put some kind of a brisk step in both of us today. I popped right out of bed feeling good. I know that it's not technically quite the new year yet. We're here, just a couple days before, but yeah, it feels very much like the energy, and probably some of that is just the fact that we had so many days off, last week for Christmas. So I think everyone's well rested, and at least for me and you, I know we sometimes get accused by our wives of being a bit of workaholics. But for those of us who enjoy work and believe that it's part of our calling and part of what we love to do and what satisfies us. I think the time off was good, but certainly ready to get back to work and get some things done, really, and make progress here into 2026.
I like everything we got going on. Shout out to WEH Supply for the beanie. Again, you guys want me to rep a hat on the show? Send it in. One Hankins, Hankins, One Hankins Circle, Metropolis, Illinois, 62960. Send it in. We'll wear it on the show, give you a shout out. I don't know if it means much to anybody, but we've got over 100 hats. So we're going to keep doing it. And the folks over at WEH, we're so super thankful for them, Carly and William and Keegan and just the whole crew. If you're not ordering something from WEH Supply, go do it today. Tell them the Shed Geek sent you over. It's keeping me warm today, Cord, on this very chilly day, and I certainly appreciate that because you know just how code natured me and Deanna are.
I do,
Whenever
and I know how little hair is on that head. I was just sitting here thinking, I was wearing hats whenever you were off to kind of keep everyone involved and whatever else. But I mean, it's hard to cover up a head of hair like this. So I'm glad that you've got the bean today, Shannon.
I'll tell you what, I have hair envy is what I have today. I have hair envy. I love it. It's looking good, my man. I'll tell you what, more than anything, I feel like, 2026 is a year of opportunity. I know certainly from a mental, spiritual, emotional perspective, man, I just feel back. I don't know how to explain that. Just kind of got your swagger back a little bit. You know what I mean? There was a rough 6 months, 2025 put it on us in a myriad of different ways. But man, it's been like we started our prayer every morning. For those of you guys that don't know, we have a theme every day that we do around here at Shed Geek, and that starts with a prayer, and that goes into whatever the theme of the day is, and then sort of the business of the day. And I made the comment today at the end of our prayer, and I really mean this because it's been on my heart so much. It's like, thank you, Lord, for difficult opportunities. It gives us a story to tell. It gives us something to go through. It gives us something to grow through, more than anything. And I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for difficult days. I'm thankful for cold weather. I'm just thankful for difficult people, and sometimes pointing that at myself. I'm thankful to have opportunities to learn. So I think that's just the message I feel like I'm taking into 2026 when I think about near 5 years. Or March would be this is a calendar year, but March will actually wrap up 5 years. We'll be working on year six content, and we're almost getting really close to working on some of that content. We're lining some of it up already here today, even before 2026 get here. So thank you, first of all, Shed Industry, for always tuning in, listening, giving us opportunity to speak. I think you guys have heard me say before, one of my favorite books is by Philip Yancey called Prayers Does It Make a Difference? And in that book, he references Haddon Robinson. Go check him out on YouTube. Haddon Robinson had a ministry. And before he would get on stage, every single time he would say, Lord, thank you for the opportunity to speak to these people today, because if they knew about me what you knew about me, they wouldn't listen to a word I'm about to say. So talk about his grace and mercies being new every day. He gives us a chance to be imperfect and still gives us opportunity. Now, Cord, I'm as close to perfect as you can get. But I mean, everybody fails, sometimes. Not everybody's got
Yeah,
a perfect head of hair, but I mean, And that's a joke. For those of you who take this too literal, please know I'm joking. I'm joking. I do not think
Oh,
that.
about the hair. Yeah, about the hair.
Yeah, only about the hair. Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
no, but, I think kind of where you started there. Obviously we've talked about it this morning in our meeting and everything else, but I think in a lot of ways, um, even that thought process, that little conversation that we shared, that narrative, it really is analogous, I think, to what is going on in the broader industry, right? Maybe not as acute for everybody.
Hmm.
But I do think that, the sort of story of the industry, if you don't mind me just kind of kicking off
Go
that
for it.
that topic. Um, I do think as we think through 2025, and just exactly how the shed industry has navigated a year with really poor consumer sentiment, increasing debt to earnings, for most Americans, um, increasing credit card and consumer debt, right? While wages have basically flatlined, overall, I think that most people are coming out of this year feeling pretty good, right? Which is a good sign. I mean, it's a good sign that the industry as a whole is maturing, that the sort of all of the underlying mechanics of like what the expectations of the consumers are, right? I mean, it has, I think at this point, pretty well solidified across the country, that a shed, a portable building, something that is not necessarily on a fixed foundation, right, is an acceptable solution in almost any and every circumstance. And to me, that's a credit. That's a credit to the industry itself, for having some really, really great operators across the country, who put out really great sheds and who have made it, kind of socially acceptable, essentially, for all walks of society, right? To consider a portable building to be a reasonable solution for their issues, for the problems that they're facing. So, but I do think that if we're really kind of thinking through what this year brought, um, you know, obviously there's not really great kind of combined data in the industry because so many of the biggest players, and the smallest and medium sized players, but so many of the players in general are private companies. So you don't get a sort of overarching view. But of course, we're able to have some of those conversations. And I think as we've kind of been saying back in the spring and over the summer, even as shed sales have been strong, it's probably um, a reasonable outcome or a reasonable conclusion to reach that more or less the same number of sheds or even slightly less possibly, within a fraction, maybe plus or minus 1% of sheds, units sold this year versus 2024, right? So in 2025 versus 2024. So you kind of have flatline growth industry wide, which I then think, because of those consumer dynamics, but which then raises some really awesome questions, as far as, so how are those companies that are seeing double digit growth, right? Like, what are they doing right? What are the strategies that are working, both from the manufacturer point of view and from the independent dealer point of view? So anyway, I think that it was a fascinating year, and that broadly, everybody seems to have a good attitude going into 2026, having weathered, some of that decline in overall consumer dynamics during 2025.
This episode is brought to you by ShedSuite, the complete shed business management software. From inventory and quoting to e-commerce and delivery scheduling, ShedSuite keeps your whole operation running smoothly. Today, leading shed businesses are focusing on digital marketing and building their online presence because that's where the customers are. That's why ShedSuite now offers full-service marketing. Everything from ads, social media, and SEO to stunning websites, branding, video, and even photography. The best part? Your website pulls straight from your ShedSuite inventory. Update it once in ShedSuite and it's live. No more managing two systems like with WordPress or WooCommerce. Ready to grow? Go to ShedSuiteServices.com to learn more and schedule a call. Let's grow together.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting depending on who you talk to. And obviously, I've said this many times before. Some of the best podcasts I'll ever conduct are ones that you guys unfortunately never get to hear. I think they oftentimes happen on phone calls. I think they happen at shed shows. I think they happen at on the road. I mean, they're just like it's the stuff that sometimes wish you could put out, and some people just prefer that anonymity. And I'm like, well, one way to rebel against that is to come on and talk about your own experience, your own story. We just went through Shed Geek Marketing, HubSpot, reporting, talking about how story branding is like basically almost top of the line, whenever it comes to like a marketing that was measurable by HubSpot in 2025 across all industries, right? Who use a CRM. We're not pushing HubSpot. I'm just saying, like, we've got our CRM partner. We love Joe Ignis and Brandon Tobin, guys over at Velocity 360. Shout out to them. Whoop whoop for all they do. We certainly encourage you guys to take a look at them. Tell them the Shed Geek sent you. But HubSpot made a really good argument for kind of like what the consumer is looking at, and like we're both producers of consumer products, but then consumers ourselves. And I think one thing we've talked about before was how you can get caught up in the trap of selling the way you buy. And if you get caught up in only selling the way you decide to purchase, you're only going to attract people like you. So like you have to be able to put on both hats. One as a consumer, but then they also as someone who's trying to produce these consumer products, and that means meeting the customer where they are. Not saying the customer's always right, just saying that they're mostly right. Just saying that you're going to have to meet them where they are. And I don't know that we saw that in Q4 in 2025 because sales from so many companies that we talked to just seem to be down pretty heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple things there, right? So, I know I reference Joe a lot, but he and I have fun, talking offline and about some of the other deals that we have going on. But I think he would say, and he's right about this, right? You better identify what each of those target consumers are, right? You better identify that avatar, understand that consumer profile, really dig deep on what their wants, needs, abilities, because I think Q4, and really some of the conversations that we've had, it was really the sort of second half of Q4, right? Is really basically Thanksgiving onward. That it seemed that, some of that demand really dropped off. But for me, that's simple, right? It is the fact that we know, just by looking at the macro data across the U.S. that, again, people are effectively living paycheck to paycheck, increasing consumer debt, AKA credit card debt, right? And so whenever Christmas comes around, right, there's only so much spending that can happen. And I think that storage solution, although it's something that is needed, as many of us know, that is something that a lot of times is a several week, several month process, at least from that first inclination of looking for that solution up until, the actual purchase decision. It's something that can really easily be put off, right? You can say, well, you know what? Yes, of course, we need some kind of a solution here in December, but we can always go and do that the second week of January, first week of February, let our finances recover a little bit. I mean, these are just going to be the dynamics going forward, for the foreseeable future. Now, I do think that, AI actually has a lot of promise in just making, U.S. firms and U.S. consumers, more money, right? If we're able to sort of win the AI race here over the next
Mm-hmm.
couple of years. I do think that like there's a good chance that basically, just as the U.S. has done over and over again since World War II, and really, since the beginning of the 20th century, we increase efficiency. Right, the culture of the U.S. is that we adopt whatever that newly adoptable technology is that increases our efficiency. We get more efficient, and because of that, we scoop up X number of the market, based on whatever that industry is. The thing about AI is it looks like it could have that sort of wide reaching effect across. But in the short and medium term, for 2026, these dynamics are they're going to be much the same. So I think it's important, you know, for whether you're at the dealer level or whether you're at the manufacturer level, to be thinking through those things. We saw, and to be clear, just because the number of units sold seems to be flat, possibly up or down by 1%, that's not to say that there are not companies, many companies, right, who had a
Mm-hmm.
better revenue year, even a better net profit year, potentially, right? But what are those strategies? If you're one of those medium or big manufacturers who are out searching for, dealers and quality dealers and dealer lots, certainly adding dealer lots or being able to kind of
Mm-hmm.
go really great dealers with really great locations, proven records, and kind of flip them. That's a great way to expand, and we saw that a lot in 2025. If you're an independent dealer, as we've been beating the drum on this for all of Q4, if not all the way back into Q3, back before the shed expo, diversification. You're going to have to be the solution that your local and quasi regional, depending on what your actual locale is, and just how rural you are, but you're going to have to be a solution, that people know they can show up and can find multiple avenues, right, to get to that solution, whether that is wood built sheds, metal sheds, Connex containers, trailers, which I think here at the end of the episode, we're going to get around to kind of what our thoughts are here in Metropolis. But, I think the important thing is just to realize that consumer dollar is going to be stretched thin, and it's going to be strategies, marketing, lead funnels, lead volume, like all those kind of, in the weeds, technical type of stuff is what's going to continue to win in 2026.
There's so many different angles to take based off of that there. Everybody's time is like in demand more just in society, whether you're buying a shed, working in the shed industry, or what have you. Like typically speaking, people just seem to be getting more busy, and they're finding alternative ways to make their time more profitable, whether that's ordering on an app and just swinging by and picking up your groceries, right? So now you're not actually walking through the store anymore. So or whatever it is. And I think about like customer acquisition time is always a big and a hot topic for me on people who buy a shed, because ultimately what they're buying storage in most cases. If you still like do any research with any company or multiple companies, they're going to tell you most of my customers still come in looking for a storage solution. So I have excess. Well, guess when they have excess more than any time ever? After Christmas, more than likely. I know we watched our grandbaby the other day just so the kids could go through and get rid of some of the toys, because she's so attached to so many of them she can't be there. It's like, hey, you gotta get her out of the room, or she loves everything all over again. She's a 18-month-old hoarder right now. So we got to break her of the habit. I might use that one of these days, Paw. But the reality is, you're selling storage solutions, and that's why, I've said for years, rising tide lifts all boats. Shout out to Tyler Mahan. Not that he coined the phrase, but that it's something that really stuck with me from the beginning of the show. Our competition's not each other. Our competition is, these storage units, that people are putting in groves. And by the way, tons of data available in those industries. You know what I mean? Like if it's self-storage, tons of data. And like
Lots
we
of
offer a much, what's that?
public, lots of
Yeah.
public held firms in that space. So you get really great data about occupancy rates and,
Yeah.
average square foot rate, like
Price. And
everything,
yeah.
all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's just one of those things where if you're selling, typical storage, we offer a much more satisfactory solution, in my opinion. You don't have to run down to the dark alley and get into the self storage. You can walk into your backyard and have it delivered right there to your liking. But diversification, like you said, being able to add these different products, if selling just storage isn't and that's great because that opens up what we already see. I mean, how many places have I been where, people are selling sheds, maybe even as their primary product, but maybe they have like an Amish store or call it an Amish store or whatever, right? So like some of these plain community things that the English people seem to be just enthralled with. And like, we drive over to Cave in Rock and go over to the little Amish store there, in Kentucky, outside of Marion. We do that once a year, just because we enjoy it. We've been going over there for 15 or 20 years, and we do it every year, sometimes twice a year, just for the purpose of going over and not only seeing the beautiful scenery or whatever and riding the ferry over, but just enjoying that selection of offerings. Anyway, gazebos, pergolas, cabanas, U-Haul, you know, uh, storage buildings, metal storage buildings, post frame, up into red iron, these little outdoor, bar areas or whatever they are. I'm trying to think of like just a multitude of things, utility trailers, right? Play sets, furniture, hunting blinds, which by the way, shout out to Hirschberger Lawn Structures, offering Playmore play sets and striker hunting blinds. Yeah, big fan of what they do. Hopefully you'll see some more of them on the show here moving forward. Love what David Hirschberger and those guys got going over there. And I love the model. I've been friends with David for over 5 years now. I've worked with him for, 5 or 6 years, and just a great group of guys over there. I love the products they're offering, but these are the supplementary, income earners that we're talking about here by being able to offer these additional services, where you almost become a store that's not just a shed dealer. Not that there's anything wrong with just a shed dealer. I don't think that has to come with that negative connotation. There's shed dealers that make a really good living and focus on that one product. But I believe that you've got time to be able to push possibly a multitude of things by adding these different products. And maybe that's just where the future's going forward on a deeper level. I mean, when we talk about literally the state of the industry, where are we at? Where are we headed in 2026? Kind of feels like that's a pretty obvious solution for most dealers.
When your business depends on getting materials fast, you can't afford to wait around. At Three Oaks Trading Company, we get it. Your production schedule moves fast, and so do we. From studs, SPF, and SYP, to all your panels, siding, and flooring. Square edge or tongue and groove, OSB or plywood, we're stocked, ready, and delivering across the U.S., often in just 3 to 5 business days. Our team specializes in serving shed builders and manufacturers, providing the products you need when you need them. Because your next build shouldn't be waiting on a delivery truck. So if you're ready for reliable service, quick turnaround, and a partner who understands your business, reach out to Three Oaks Trading Company today. Call 833-214-1723 or visit threeoakstradingco.com to get started. Three Oaks Trading Company. Fast, dependable, built for builders.
Yeah. Oh, from the dealer perspective, for sure. And even from the manufacturer perspective, right? I think the offering is what is key. But to do all those things, right, it requires a little tweak on the some of the models that are out there, some of the business models, because realistically, what you can't afford to do, or most people, I mean, it depends on what scale and everything else, but to be efficient, you know, so many of those offerings need to move to, um, a non-inventory model, right? A display type of a business model where, the it is displayed, it is shown, but having all of those different offerings at any kind of an inventory level, really starts to become cumbersome. Not only just the cost of manufacture, labor, the cost that you have in it while it sits there, but also what kind of lot are you able to fit onto? Um, right? Just physically, logistically, you start to get challenging. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And just to dovetail off of that, you know, I think then the actual shed products themselves, right? The sort of widgets, so to speak. What is being offered, as options, whether that be kind of a literal widget, when it comes to doors and windows. Solar Blaster obviously is one of our sponsors. Whenever it comes to different kind of ventilation solutions, all of those kind of premium upsells, along with then the electric packages, the full finish outs that we see being offered. And again, this is not to say that you need to have, fully finished and electric packaged out inventory sitting everywhere, right? Like that's
Right.
probably the opposite of what we're saying. Like, don't, kind of offer all of these things and have them in some version of a display, and maybe even a display that works on multiple levels, right? That has, a display model that's almost that cutaway style, right? Where you're actually intentionally building a model that shows you how the walls are framed, but then how it could be finished out over here. And this is what, one exterior paneling looks like. This is another, and it's all kind of combined in that single single display, so that your customers can kind of explore how those different options look and interact with each other, longevity, warranty, all that stuff, right? Um you know but I think that the leaps and bounds that specialized shed products and widgets have come, really in the last year or a couple years, to really have that specialty into the sizing of shed windows, shed doors, the sizing of all of these different products, the very specific use case, type of products that are out there now. Um, to me, but what we're saying here is adding complexity, right? All of these offerings add layers of complexity. So again, we're right back to strategy, operations, marketing, lead funnels, right? We're right back to, this is going to continue to be competitive for what looks like a long term, really good and thriving, viable, industry. But it's going to be competitive at that individual dealer or small and medium manufacturer level, to just kind of bulk up, to kind of get all those things on board to continue to stay competitive, moving forward. So I don't know what you think about all that, Shannon, but that's just sort of, my
That's it.
where my mind goes.
It's an interesting dynamic, obviously, people used to build sheds, set them out by the road, try to sell them for cash, along comes RTO, I mean, finance has always been there. It's just never really, as an unsecured loan, wasn't a whole lot of organization until the last few years. I don't feel like, finance is much older, much more reliable. It's obviously, go to your bank, pick something up, as far as a personal loan, throw some collateral out there, go buy this shed or what have you. Rent own's just always been that simple solution. So like trying to figure out ways to help the customer too. And rent own became a very obvious solution, and now it's a huge part of our industry. I'm excited to see where finance might be going in that now that it's starting to be a little bit more competitive. I know it can be tough to get, consumers into that, that 500 FICO score, possibly into a shed just based off debt to income and credit history and things like that. I think there's some players that are coming to the table. We're super excited to partner with our finance partner Upgrade, through Joel and the good folks over at J Money. I feel like have done a good job if you want to just have another solution, right? But whether it's selling a product, or whether it's, like signing up with some additional service that helps you sell those products ultimately. That was strange.
Yeah, it was. Kicked us out and then put us back in. A little double service there.
Thought the Lord done come took us home. I wasn't sure. We've been just as good out here banding clover.
But you were talking about that sort of finance and rent to own, just the availability of those options.
Yeah, it's just, having a solution, whether it's an additional product line or whether it's just a customer service, value add piece, whether it's simpler terms on RTO or whatever. I mean, I still think that as long as you have I'm not like dogging on the consignment model. I think one of the things that's tough about the consignment model is you almost got to, throw something at the wall and see what sticks. Like, especially if you're not betting these dealers on very heavily. You throw, 50 dealer lots out there and 25 of them are gone by the end of the year. You got the cream of the crop, the 25 that are producing. You probably find a couple of $1 million, $2 million dealers out of that mix just because you're playing the odds. But what about, even purchasing inventory and that wholesale model, where you have less dealers, but more meaningful dealers, where you can also do things like, leverage your SEO value through your website, leveraging your dollar on a Google ad or a Meta ad, or any kind of marketing, for that matter. Those are just the ones that are commonly talked about, but creating sort of something systematic in your 3D configuration, maybe even partnering with a metal company as a company. I know a few manufacturers that do that to increase efficiency by having one vendor supplier. Now this may be hard to go back and grandfather people in, but adding something like Playmore, adding something like Striker, but doing that across the board. What I love most is that, well, how do I say this? Birthday money is the easiest money to spend. If it comes easy, it goes easy. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're invested into the product yourself, and then you got to turn that inventory, most of these consignment guys are trying to get inventory turned 3 or 4 times a year to sort of justify putting out this free inventory and paying this 10% roughly commission. What's the expectation whenever you begin to buy on a wholesale level? Now you move that wholesale model, down a little bit where you can increase your MSRP, come out with a little bit of a higher total and make it a little bit more of a true business model on either a net 30, 60 or 90 or some kind of floor planning. Again, not hating by any means on the consignment dealer, but what does it look like? Sometimes less is more. Sometimes it's really just about having more organization. And I don't know if I'm speaking to the dealers on that or the manufacturers. But one thing that I do know that I feel like is still true for the most part in large is that the average customer doesn't know the difference in the 8 or 10 shed lots that are lined up on a heavily traveled interstate over a 10 to 15 mile stretch. you're the same as that guy and that guy and that guy and that guy down there. We don't know. We don't really have it's not a focus on brand like it is Jordan's, right? Or Lamborghini, or even Bucky's. Like we refer to Bucky's a lot because, you'll wait and drive by, 30 gas stations to get to a Bucky's.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely exceptional, almost on the verge of awe-inspiring experience. The scale of it itself, right, almost produces its own branding. But then they go ahead and spend gosh, I would hate to guess. I mean, all those billboards. I've done some billboard purchasing, some media purchasing in my life, and I just can't imagine, what that costs them. But that's basically the extent of it, right? It's billboards and it is the experience itself. And I mean, the truth is that, regionally, we've had some players who have put the money into that regional branding effort. We always reference Cook here in Southern Illinois and Western Kentucky because they're one of the oldest players, super well branded, sponsored everything. Had the insight up front to call it a portable warehouse. And in fact, I had a person quote that to me at church the other day. I was talking about Cook for whatever reason, and they said portable warehouses, right? Just genius branding, just right off the top. But yeah, you're right. Most people don't know the difference. That sort of brand awareness is just not there on a national level. But I think more broadly when it comes to what we're talking about, it's really just being intentional, right? I mean, to your point, put out 50 lot, like if you're big enough. I mean, we're talking to a very small segment of the audience here, right? But if you're big enough to put out 50 lots, and in whatever, a 12, 18, 24-month window, if you're keeping like a rolling list of that sort of your newest dealers, and you open 50 and 25 of them close, and you get 25 who are good quality. And of those, you get a couple that are really top exceptional quality, right? And basically you have the cash on hand, and the logistics, right? You have the logistics to kind of go do that from a manufacturer's perspective. You have your own trucks, or you have a network of reliable shed haulers who kind of more or less, will take your, will put you on their schedule because they know that it's a good, reliable, not to say that they wouldn't, that they don't have other clients or whatever, even in those independent situations. But, I think the point that we're making here is like, 2026 is going to be a year of intentional strategies win, right? If you're doing these things because it makes sense for the amount of cash on hand, the amount of liquid, assets, and like ultimately all of those sheds are going to get sold anyway, as a manufacturer, then maybe it makes sense to kind of truck them here and there and go try out 50 people to make sure that the 25 good ones are your dealers now, right? But coming at that from all different perspectives, whether it be that independent dealer, who is then working on that 10%, right, versus getting the wholesale margin, even though they'd be taking a little more risk themselves. If they're a good dealer already, that'll probably just make them a better dealer, right? Because they know what to do, they know how to sell, right? So now that they're actually gaining some incentive, right? So if there's some kind of a transitionary plan, I know personally, from my own experience, my wife owns a hair salon, right? So she begins girls right out of school. I say girls, men or women, whatever. She begins right out of school on a commission basis, right? Because that means that she can expect them to be there for a certain amount of time. They're taking walk-ins, they're doing whatever they need to do. And then once they build their own business up, then they switch over to a booth rent, right? Which would be, roughly analogous then to, wholesaling that space. Right now, they're just in that booth at a flat rate because now that is the most incentivized option for them. Right. So, some of these things that we're talking about are almost shifts in what has been the traditional business model and culture of the industry itself. But all of these things are going to take intentionality, strategy, planning. These days you've heard me say it too many times already, but I'm gonna keep saying it until we have a bunch of great content creators in the industry. There needs to be content around it. Tell people what you're doing and why you're doing it. Your customers, your competitors, right? Let them all know, right? Go own that space. And probably that's a good spot for us to even transition a bit into talking about some of the ways that we hope to help with that intentionality planning.
I feel like you read my mind sometimes. I was like, what a good segue into a conversation about some of the things that we're hoping to do, which we do already, have been doing for years, right? People call, want thoughts, want opinions. We're getting back out there, getting on the road, doing some more traveling this year. I even want to throw in there, like, reach out to us if you want us to come, because we would like to come to you. We need you, and we hope that you would see the value in us coming out there and even doing a consumer facing conversation where we can get a go to a client, and take a look at the shed, whether that's a traditional storage shed or whether it's something you turned into a tiny home for them or some kind of like studio for them. Like, we'd love to come out and shoot the content because we want to create a consumer facing channel that can talk about the construction of your buildings. We're not doing these things where we're getting in here and comparing, oh, I don't know, Sony to, some other brand or anything like that. No, we're trying to highlight, your product and what people should be looking for whenever they come shop for, a shed, and what are some the features and benefits. So contact us. We want to travel to you. We want to come see, what you got going on. We got to figure out how to make that work, but we want to put some content out on a channel that's very visual because we believe in video and what it does, and drive those leads, help drive the industry up overall. Why not use our talents, what little they be, to help in any way that we can. But yeah, even the consultative side of this, Cord, I mean, we've got some really great, partners lined up that have some real life experience. I mean, even thinking about what you and Shalisha bring to the table, and I know a lot of people don't understand what Growth Ops Ally is completely yet because they haven't had the full, rollout or whatever in the industry to what that is. But I mean, if you're a small business and you're needing someone on a fractional level, it's hard to bring someone in. It's hard to bring in a full-time this, a full-time that, a full-time, everything you need. There's someone who can do that at a limited capacity. Get in there, get your hands dirty, and kind of talk about, a myriad of things. And you can, give your commercial for Growth Ops and what you guys do a little bit better than I can. But thinking about our consulting partners, Tyler Mahan, has been in it for 20 years, or more. Peter Miller, has been in it for, I think, 12 years already. Richard Mashburn, a guy who needs no introduction, right? Christopher Sedlick, if you're looking for somebody who you need to, you want to talk about somebody who understands marketing well, understands it, well enough to say, hey, I think I'm in a place now to where it's easier to consult and have the conversation to lead people into the right direction and to stay away from going into the wrong things, which is why we, soft played Shed Geek marketing for 4 or 5 months there, until we could relaunch it under our own. Like, I know you're like, what do you mean your own? It says Shed Geek. Yeah, but when you're white labeling, you don't own it. You don't own the money. You don't own the process. You don't own the, and we wanted to change that. And we have. Yeah, the customer experience. And like now we do control that, because like, hey, look, if you're going to build business off of the trusted, name sort of that we've built in the industry, like, why not do that ourselves so that we can ensure that the customer's getting the best experience? And, you think about Chris and what he can like, or Richard, you talk about the business side of things. that they can bring in terms of like overall value to a customer who signs up. And luckily the good news is we just got our second, client, on consultation. So like without really launching it very heavily so far, we're trying to slow play this to make sure that we get people the results that they're seeking when they call and they look for information. And, sometimes that's just a question like, hey, we just want to pay you on retainer, and if that's something that you want to do, that's a little different than a much more deeper dive right into consultation. So just look, it starts with a conversation. It starts with a discovery call. Those are free and never hurt anybody, right? Like even your lawyers usually tell you, come on in, I'll talk to you for an hour. I won't charge you for this unless we do business together, but at least it gives you an indication, and that's not all lawyers, I understand, but typically speaking, like give us a call. We want to talk to you. We may not be the right fit. You may find that, but I'll tell you what, for those that I feel like we're putting together a group of partners that can really help people in a business setting, in a marketing setting, and understanding P&L, understanding, revenue, trying to make more sense of their cost per click, a customer acquisition cost. These are just boring things to most people, Cord, but things that we've partnered with the right people who specialize in them, who know how to move the needle.
Introducing the Challenger, the revolutionary new shed mover that's taking the industry by storm. The Challenger features a touchless design, ensuring it only makes contact at the end of the skids and the bottom of the floor joists, so rest easy knowing your gable walls will remain pristine. Worried about reliability? Fear not, the Challenger is always up for the challenge and will not overturn or scuff your shed. Harness the power of innovative wireless technology. Remotely control the Challenger via your smartphone. No cell service needed. And guess what? The cell phone remote comes standard with every Challenger at no extra cost. Featuring floating forks, a 4-directional tilting mast, and sliding weight transfer, move the shed weight precisely where you need it to get ultimate traction. With self-loading capability, straight onto your truck, say goodbye to the need for a hydraulic carriage. The Challenger makes your job easy and more efficient. Choose from 2 machine sizes, 10,000 pounds and 15,000 pounds. Perfect for any job. Visit www.shedchallenger.com or email us at info@shedchallenger.com or call or text 828-220-3508 for more information. Experience the future of shed moving with the Challenger.
Well, they're the things that are going to win. So whether they're boring or they're not, or you enjoy it or you don't, if you want, I'm not trying to be too harsh about it, and of course there's always going to be a place for people who build sheds and put them out, and people who drive by are going to buy a certain number of those, right? But to compete and win and grow and employ, and really share those bounties, of that success with your community and with your employees, and to really do what I think, both of us feel is, somewhat of a goal or a mission or however you want to talk about that. And I think a lot of the industry feels that way too. Whether you like it or not, that's these types of strategies, insights, planning, real intentionality with what you're doing at each facet of your business. I think the good thing about consulting is Shed Geek Consulting is that, these people are able to have, our consultants are able to have this conversation over a period of time, right? So that it is not, here's what you should do. And then, you walk away, right? As you said, you've had some of these conversations for years, right? In 30-minute phone calls or hour-long phone calls or 2-hour-long phone calls. I've seen you have some of those. But, realistically, it takes that communication over a longer stretch of time to make sure that all of that intentionality is adding up to the goals that you have. So, I feel great about the talent pool that we have so far. We're continuing to add both consultants and clients. I think it's going to be critical going forward. Realistically, probably 2026 and 2027. Because I don't think we're going to have real wage growth until there's much more integration of some of the efficiency from AI, and then that's going to have to its way into the system, and people are then going to have to negotiate for higher wages because of their level of expertise, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's a couple year journey that we're going to be on here. And so, this is going to be true, for that sort of medium and long-term trends. At least that's what kind of national economists and everything think. So, I would say, yes, let's, if you are looking to be intentional, if you are looking to employ strategy, in a way that continues to allow you to grow, and grow your business, grow your number of employees, grow those sort of bounties of the harvest, so to speak, then I think it's worth a call and worth, at least getting in touch with one of these really great minds to help you along that process. Also, which this is probably, aimed at the other side of our listener base, for all those who might want to advertise with us, who want to speak to manufacturers and dealers, and the broader industry. We do have our 2026 Shed Geek Media Kit that is now available. I think you referenced it just a little bit, but my goodness, I think we've expanded our ad offerings. I think we're doing some really great innovations here. Just real briefly, just to give everyone a little bit of an idea, the podcast itself, talking about 1.1 thousand weekly listeners, right at 4,500 newsletter subscribers. Of course, we have over 100,000 podcast downloads, and that's climbing rapidly as well. With all of the different channels. But the expanded advertising that we're offering, the live ad reads, the sponsored segments, the idea that an advertiser could come in and say, oh gosh, off the top of my head, let's say that we know that we want to have a consumer focus, right? We want to think about what is the consumer looking for in this modern shed market, right? And we produce, or maybe we're one of the suppliers, we kind of produce those widgets or those products, so we want to zoom in on what the consumer is looking for when it comes to longevity and warranties and upsells and upgrades and whatever else that might be. So maybe that, well, to the hat that you're wearing, right? Maybe you're a supplier who's saying, consumer segment brought to you by, WEH Supply or whoever might want to do something like that. And, I think that is a great way to have a much more interactive conversation. Hosts here, me and you, along with our guests, and really, kind of impact that conversation in a regular way that goes a little further than just a recorded ad, right? Something that really requires that direct feedback, from the guest and from us and from what's going on in the industry, at the time that we're recording the podcast. And, I think that it's a really great thing. Of course, we also have, exclusive service provider opportunities available. We've kind of segmented each of the products and services in the industry into different broad categories. We do custom quotes on that. I think that's a big innovation. And then, of course, we do still have a sponsor, a studio sponsor spot available for the Friday show here.
Maybe not for long. I think that may be, by the time this episode comes out, we may be eating those words, but I'll even jump in enough to say, guys, on the, like why, like, the exclusive and things like that. Look, it's very simple. It's very capitalistic in nature. Like, I love the industry and I've worked so hard to be fair and balanced, this whole time. But we recognize, like, almost want to get into a conversation and we got a hard stop coming up. But like, what is advertising? How is it trackable? What does the digital footprint look like nowadays? Like, what is the touch point that actually gets the credit? How many touch points get the credit for moving the service along? How many times can I tell you about Shed Pro 3D Configurator, which I love the guys over there? How many times can I tell you about it before you say, I think I'm going to call them up and do it? But what was the point in which, you actually helped to influence, my decision and either through some conversation or a podcast that you did, a demo of the product I didn't know that existed. Maybe it's the reputation of others talking about how helpful and beneficial it's been for them to add a particular product. I mean, I'm such a fan of Solar Blaster fans. I think there ought to be one on every one. Why? Because they advertise with you? No, but because I think that if you're not doing proper research and development, you're just kind of like waiting to see what works. Well, unless you're waiting on the customers to demand, right? Like these things, sometimes you don't know until you buy something and put it out there. So give those guys over at Solar Blaster a call. That way, they got an opportunity to at least show you what that product is. Listen to the podcast, check it out, buy one, see if it works, get your customer feedback. But I'm just, so far removed, even because it's been close to 5 years now already, Cord, that I've gone without selling, and we're even talking about opening up something locally, not to compete on like this large level, but to kind of stay and get your head in the game, keep your head in the game on, both the selling of sheds, but we're talking about limiting that to almost a display model, where we can sell heavier off 3D configuration, Zoom calls, live switch, whatever way we can get in front of the consumer. I mean, they can come knock on the door, sit down with us and talk to us. Nothing wrong with that. We'll just pull our 3D configurator up on the screen, show them what can be built. And our mindset and thoughts are, if you can put out a building in 3 to 4 weeks from the shop versus 10 business days, moving an off-lot inventory building, is like, you can invest your money a lot safer into new products and into labor rather than putting it all into inventory. Again, not trying to make any dealers upset. I just think that as a manufacturer is offering a product, it seems like a really good value proposition. If you can take the 200,000 in inventory that you were going to put out on a lot and dump it into reaching those people online, and basically, consuming market share, because you're first in line. It's your opportunity to mess up if you're getting to the customer. You just got to find a way to meet them where they are. And maybe that is online. Maybe that is through a Zoom call. Maybe that is through a Google Meets or what have you. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. And then some of the different products that we're going to offer here on a small scale in a very small town. Cord, you said on the city council here, I don't know, what are we, 6,500 people, roughly. We're a bedroom community for Paducah, but it's sometimes tough to get the Paducah folks to come over to Metropolis. We tend to go the other way, over to Paducah, just because of the larger presence, even though it's a small city. But I'm just excited. I'm excited for what 2026 holds in general. 5-year wrap up of the podcast. Having you here to co-host with me, jumping back into some shed sales, and other product sales, just to kind of keep our pulse on the industry, make a few extra bucks, hopefully, while we're at it. The consultation is as exciting as ever. Getting to work with this cast of individuals, right? Of shed geeks, some that are more shed geek than I'll ever be, just because of their years in service and their knowledge and so many things they've taught me. They can share that with the industry. And we want to control that consumer experience in a way that they're satisfied or whatever. And the same with marketing. Rent to own still out there. I'm thinking about that. I'm trying to figure out, what that looks like, past 2026, because it's always interesting to see where it's going. Finance as well. I'm just overall, I'm very excited about 2026, Cord. I don't know where others are in this space, but I feel like this is the year for creativity. This is the year for opportunity for creative minds who are going to look for ways to be successful in their business endeavors. And you know what? Maybe Shed Geek's not a big enough name, but I don't know what the name of it is. Whenever you start including all these other products and services, the shed just seems to be the common denominator that holds us all together. So excited. That's all I got. Any final thoughts? I've got a call coming up here. But any final thoughts on what you see and what you'd like to see in 2026?
No, I think we've been pretty thorough here. I'm like you. I'm excited. I think we are, as embedded as ever. Certainly the conversations that we have around here from across the industry. I think we have a pulse on the industry as good as, as anyone. The conversations that we have really run the gamut. And oftentimes, include people who probably would not get on the phone with each other, but are perfectly willing to call from both directions. So, I think we have a good pulse, a good beat on the industry. And I think that we're offering, some great solutions, kind of in all directions, whether that be for the vendors themselves, for dealers and manufacturers who kind of, want to have a little bit of insight, consultation, marketing services, obviously RTO and finance, but I think, for me, it's exciting to be in that intentional space. I think we're to a point where every step we make is very intentional. It's for a purpose. It's to drive a result. It's to help someone else succeed. Right. And so I feel great about it. And man, I'm looking forward to it.
We want to hear from you, Shed Industry. Give us a call. Send us an email. We'd love to interview you. We can do that right there from the comfort of your office. Let's hear about your shed story. Let's story brand. Let's build you some SEO value and some backlinks just from simply coming on for free and talking about your shed experience. We'll even send over the footage for you to chop up and use in any way that you want for your own self-promotion, whether it be on your website or through your social media channels. But more than anything, it helps build that good SEO organic value. I think I still like, look at a couple of the interviews we did and I go Google them and we end up showing up top on the list of Google for their SEO. And I'm thinking to myself like, hey, if that's a free gimme just to come on and talk about your experience, where you started, how you got to where you are, what you've seen, we need your stories. We want to hear your stories. Others want to hear your story. It's not bragging to come on and talk about your testimony. We know who gets the credit. The good Lord gets the credit for any opportunities that we have. I've been wearing out the song here lately. I can't even walk without him holding my hand, but it's I'm doing the Cody Johnson country western singer version of it, and not necessarily the old hymn. Not that I have anything wrong with that. I just don't I don't know anybody that's recorded it and put it out. Maybe I should ask my guest to give me some suggestions on that. But I thank you. I hope that our heart comes through on these podcasts. I think it does. It's been 5 years of doing it. It's what we want to keep doing. Thank you for letting us live and learn, make mistakes, make progress along the way. More than anything, build a community, which is something that's both near and dear to mine and Cord's heart. Encourage you guys to go check out Growth Ops Ally. These guys are really sharp. They've built a lot of business in their years, and it would behoove you to take a look at what they do, who they are, and how they can help. So looking forward to 2026, and just all the opportunities that exist. Cord, thank you so much for being on the show today. Can't wait to get started, buddy.
Let's do it.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks again, Shed Pro, for being the Shed Geeks studio sponsor. If you need any more information about Shed Pro or about Shed Geek, just reach out. You can reach us by email at info@shedgeek.com or just go to our website, www.shedgeek.com, and submit a form with your information, and we'll be in contact right away. Thank you again for listening, as always, to today's episode of the Shed Geek Podcast. Thank you and have a blessed day.